Hey guys, tonight we wander through the silver-tinged corridors of medieval Persia, where gardens were not merely plots of earth, but carefully orchestrated stages for moonlight to dance upon water and stone. Imagine stepping barefoot onto dew-kissed marble paths, the air rich with the scent of night-blooming jasmine, and a soft breeze carrying the faint echo of a distant lute. You probably won't survive this walk in the literal sense. Sandals weren't exactly what we'd call protective footwear, but the mind can drift and linger just fine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and local time, so we can imagine our collective moonlight journey stretching across continents and time zones. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge softly through the origins of Persian moon gardens, tracing paths where early designers blended earthly geometry with celestial wonder. The obvious truth is that humans have always looked up, curious about lunar rhythms, and sought to mirror those patterns in their immediate surroundings. Fringe tales suggest that some early patrons even believed planting a garden under a waxing moon could bless it with longevity and beauty, a quiet superstition mingling with meticulous horticulture. Historians still argue whether these early designs were primarily symbolic, practical, or a blend of both, but the gentle hum of planning, layout, and patience is undeniable. Each garden began with a vision of harmony, imagining how water, stone, and flora might interact with silver light. You trace the pathways in your mind, long, reflective channels meant to catch the moon's glow, terraces rising gently to capture vantage points, and central pools that double as mirrors of the night sky. The interplay of geometry and symbolism creates an immersive experience, where every turn and curve whispers an invitation to linger, to reflect, and perhaps to be slightly awed. Walking along imagined pathways, you notice how designers often paired circular motifs with water, creating reflections that almost double the moon's presence. There's a quirky detail in some manuscripts hinting that the very first moon gardens included pale flowers that glowed faintly under night skies, so that even the shyest bloom would participate in lunar theatrics. You smile at the thought, realizing that aesthetic delight was as crucial as botanical knowledge, blending the obvious truth of function with the charm of gentle whimsy. As you drift deeper into the garden's conceptual beginnings, remember that these spaces were not just for royalty. Scholars and poets often wandered the same paths, composing verses and meditating under the watchful moon. The combination of geometry, water, fragrance, and celestial alignment creates a sensory experience that is at once intellectual and utterly soothing. You feel the centuries of human curiosity in every imagined step, each scent, each reflected shimmer reinforcing the enduring allure of moonlight and design. You continue along the imagined avenues of Persian moon gardens, noting how geometry was not merely ornamental but a deliberate reflection of lunar cycles. Each square, circle, and intersecting line serves as a subtle reminder that the cosmos is orderly, even if your daily life rarely feels that way. The obvious truth is that humans have always sought patterns in chaos, mapping the heavens onto Earth wherever possible. Fringe interpretations suggest that some garden layouts were designed so that during a full moon, certain pathways would be illuminated exactly from one pavilion to the next, creating a silent, silver corridor, a nocturnal light show for those patient enough to notice. Historians still argue whether this precision was intentional or the product of coincidental alignment, but the meticulous care invested in these designs is undeniable. You trace the mental lines connecting pools, terraces, and flower beds, appreciating the underlying symmetry. Pale flowers, often jasmine, moonflower, or night-blooming tulips, were strategically planted along the axis to catch reflected light, their fragrance intensifying after sunset. The subtle choreography of scent, geometry, and reflection turns the garden into a living map of celestial observation. You can almost hear the gentle trickle of water echoing along channels aligned to intersect with moonbeams, creating shifting pools of luminous patterns that invite slow, contemplative walking. Apprentices and poets alike might have wandered these gardens, their footsteps synchronized with the soft rippling of water. One quirky tidbit claims that some nobles believed arranging beds in circular patterns could trap moonlight overnight, leaving the soil magically enriched by lunar energy. A charming, if scientifically dubious, idea. Still, the interplay of math and aesthetics produced effects both tangible and mystical, a quiet fusion of intellect and imagination. As you meander through these invisible pathways, consider the subtle use of perspective. Terraces rising gently so visitors could watch the moon climb, or paths curving slightly to reveal the full beauty of reflective pools gradually. The gardens were structured experiences, a slow orchestration where each movement and glance was guided by thoughtful design. Even without witnessing them directly, you can feel the deliberate layering of geometry and lunar symbolism, a gentle reminder that human curiosity often seeks to mirror the universe's quiet, eternal patterns. You pause near an imagined reflective pool, letting your gaze linger on the way moonlight would have shimmered across its surface. Water, in these medieval Persian gardens, was far more than decoration. It was a medium, a mirror for the heavens, and a gentle amplifier of moonlight. One obvious truth is that water has always mesmerized humans. It captures light, movement, and reflection in a way that commands attention without demanding effort. Fringe stories suggest that some pools were engineered with slight undulations in the stone to make moonlight dance like 1,000 tiny winks, teasing the night wanderer with playful glimmers. Historians still argue whether these subtle manipulations were intentional aesthetic choices or simply the happy accident of flowing water over carved stone, but the result was undeniably magical. You imagine the sound of water trickling softly through channels that thread the garden, carrying moonlight along like a gentle, silvery river. Pools were often placed at focal points, bordered by pale stone or delicate flower beds, enhancing both reflection and aroma. The strategic use of water creates a visual rhythm that draws the eye, guides footsteps, and rewards patient observation. You almost hear the faint whisper of night insects and rustling leaves as accompaniment, a natural symphony complementing human design. One quirky detail is that some garden plans included tiny fountains whose spouts were angled to catch the moonlight at precise moments, creating sparkling arcs that shifted slowly as the moon traced its path across the sky. The effect must have been mesmerizing, a kind of nocturnal theater that required no audience except those willing to wander in quiet contemplation. Humor might have played a role too. After all, a noble or poet might startle at a sudden glittering spray and laugh softly at the moon's mischievous sparkle. Walking along imagined water channels, you notice how every design choice, from pool shape to channel width, was subtly calibrated to magnify the silver light. There's a tactile sense here, even in imagination. The smoothness of stone under fingertips, the slight chill of water reflecting evening air, the soft scent of night-blooming flowers mingling with cool mist. These sensory layers combine to make the moonlit garden a multidimensional experience, where geometry, reflection, sound, and scent converge into an almost meditative atmosphere. Even as you drift further along these pathways, the delicate interplay of water and moonlight serves as a quiet reminder that medieval Persian gardens were designed for observation, reflection, and wonder. Every ripple in the water, every subtle shimmer, and every scent-laden breeze works together to create a nocturnal sanctuary, a place where human artistry meets cosmic rhythm in gentle, enduring dialogue. You step mentally into the soft glow of a moonlit garden, noticing how plant selection was central to the nocturnal experience. Pale flowers and silvery-leaved shrubs were chosen not only for fragrance, but for their ability to reflect subtle moonlight, creating a soft, ethereal glow across terraces and pathways. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to brightness and darkness, and these nocturnal florals provided visual anchors that guided wandering feet and wandering thoughts alike. Fringe anecdotes claim that some gardeners planted certain jasmine varieties specifically so their scent would intensify under a full moon, a botanical trick almost like a gentle magic trick for the senses. Historians still argue whether these choices were guided by empirical observation, symbolic meaning, or a mix of both, but the result is an undeniably immersive nocturnal tapestry. You imagine brushing past silvery-leaf sage and moonflower vines, their soft petals catching faint light, releasing delicate fragrances into the night air. The air is cool, scented, and slightly damp with the residual moisture of evening dew. Fragrance, in these gardens, acted as a companion to visual design. Pale, luminous flowers for the eyes, and sweet, subtly nocturnal scents for the nose. This dual stimulation engages you more fully, creating a gentle, contemplative environment. The act of walking slowly, breathing deeply, and noticing subtle shifts in fragrance and glow becomes a meditative practice in itself. Quirky details emerge in the selection of plants. Some sources suggest that pale lilies were believed to sing with the moon. In folklore, a poetic way of describing their nocturnal aroma and the way their petals seem to shimmer. You smile at the thought, imagining the garden alive with an almost sentient, gentle responsiveness to lunar light. This layer of playful legend blends seamlessly with tangible design, emphasizing the subtle interplay between the real and the imagined. Paths wind carefully among flower beds, ensuring that as the moon rises, it illuminates certain vistas while leaving other corners in soft shadow. The interplay of light and darkness, scent and movement, creates an immersive choreography that rewards patience and attention. Even the smallest leaves and petals contribute to this sensory symphony, reflecting light, refracting shadow, and wafting fragrance in a delicate balance. As you move further through this imagined landscape, it's evident that the designers of medieval Persian moon gardens understood a fundamental human truth. Engagement of the senses, sight, smell, touch, and even imagination, create spaces that are not merely observed but experienced. Every plant, every pathway, every breath of night air is carefully orchestrated to deepen the connection between visitor, garden, and the slow, luminous rhythms of the moon above. You step mentally into the soft glow of a moonlit garden, noticing how plant selection was central to the nocturnal experience. Pale flowers and silvery-leaved shrubs were chosen not only for fragrance, but for their ability to reflect subtle moonlight, creating a soft, ethereal glow across terraces and pathways. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to brightness and darkness, and these nocturnal florals provided visual anchors that guided wandering feet and wandering thoughts alike. Fringe anecdotes claim that some gardeners planted certain jasmine varieties specifically so their scent would intensify under a full moon, a botanical trick almost like a gentle magic trick for the senses. Historians still argue whether these choices were guided by empirical observation, symbolic meaning, or a mix of both, but the result is an undeniably immersive nocturnal tapestry. You imagine brushing past silvery-leaf sage and moonflower vines, their soft petals catching faint light, releasing delicate fragrances into the night air. The air is cool, scented, and slightly damp with the residual moisture of evening dew. Fragrance, in these gardens, acted as a companion to visual design. Pale, luminous flowers for the eyes, and sweet, subtly nocturnal scents for the nose. This dual stimulation engages you more fully, creating a gentle, contemplative environment. The act of walking slowly, breathing deeply, and noticing subtle shifts in fragrance and glow becomes a meditative practice in itself. Quirky details emerge in the selection of plants. Some sources suggest that pale lilies were believed to sing with the moon. In folklore, a poetic way of describing their nocturnal aroma and the way their petals seem to shimmer. You smile at the thought, imagining the garden alive with an almost sentient, gentle responsiveness to lunar light. This layer of playful legend blends seamlessly with tangible design, emphasizing the subtle interplay between the real and the imagined. Paths wind carefully among flower beds, ensuring that as the moon rises, it illuminates certain vistas while leaving other corners in soft shadow. The interplay of light and darkness, scent and movement, creates an immersive choreography that rewards patience and attention. Even the smallest leaves and petals contribute to this sensory symphony, reflecting light, refracting shadow, and wafting fragrance in a delicate balance. As you move further through this imagined landscape, it's evident that the designers of medieval Persian moon gardens understood a fundamental human truth. Engagement of the senses, sight, smell, touch, and even imagination, create spaces that are not merely observed but experienced. Every plant, Every pathway, every breath of night air is carefully orchestrated to deepen the connection between visitor, garden, and the slow, luminous rhythms of the moon above. You drift deeper into the realm of historical patronage, realizing that Persian moon gardens were often as much about social signaling as they were about aesthetic pleasure. Royalty and nobility commissioned these gardens to demonstrate taste, power, and celestial awareness, subtly embedding personal prestige into every terrace, fountain, and flowerbed. One obvious truth emerges here. Humans have long used beauty to assert influence, even under the soft, egalitarian glow of moonlight. Fringe accounts whisper that some kings believed a particularly radiant garden could literally attract lunar favor, boosting harvests or securing peace, an idea that might make modern gardeners chuckle, but speaks to a persistent human desire to harmonize with celestial rhythms. Historians still debate whether these commissions were acts of genuine spiritual reverence, social competition, or a blend of both, but the enduring artistry testifies to the care invested in each creation. You picture walking alongside courtiers who would discuss design while sipping fragrant tea, their silhouettes softened by the moon. Each garden element, from patterned paving stones to pale blossoms, served multiple purposes: visual delight, symbolic meaning, and a stage for social interaction. In this nocturnal theater, the soft laughter of companions mingles with the gentle trickle of water and the whisper of bamboo, creating an environment both intimate and grand. Patrons were not passive viewers. Their presence and taste actively shaped the rhythm and content of the gardens, their preferences immortalized in stone and plantings. A quirky detail emerges when you imagine certain pavilions designed with lunar windows that framed specific phases of the moon, casting precise arcs of light on inscribed poetry or delicate fountains. This feature blends utility and symbolism, allowing a visitor or a monarch to experience moonlight in a curated, almost theatrical manner. You might chuckle imagining a king insisting that the next waxing moon be perfectly aligned with his favorite jasmine bed, a tiny act of cosmic micromanagement. Even in these grand designs, the gardens offered quiet spaces for reflection and contemplation. Paths widened or narrowed to create private alcoves, pools were oriented to catch the maximum lunar reflection, and seating was strategically placed to frame the night sky. The interaction of design and patronage reflects a layered human truth. Beauty and function are often intertwined, guided both by desire and necessity. As you wander in thought, you sense the enduring legacy of these royal interventions. Each terrace, fountain, and flowerbed is a testament to meticulous planning, aesthetic ambition, and a subtle, ongoing dialogue with the cosmos. The gardens are simultaneously spaces of private reflection and public statement, designed to nurture the mind, spirit, and social image beneath the patient gaze of the moon. You drift along imagined moonlit pathways, noting how their winding courses were designed to guide visitors on a deliberate, almost meditative journey. The obvious truth is that humans respond to movement and pacing. Even subtle changes in path width, direction, or incline influence attention, mood, and contemplation. Fringe stories suggest that some paths were intentionally circuitous so that a visitor would encounter the moon's reflection in a pond at multiple angles, creating an evolving, interactive nocturnal experience. Historians still debate whether these serpentine layouts were primarily aesthetic, symbolic, or simply a practical response to terrain, but the effect is undeniably immersive. You picture stepping lightly over cool stone, following gently curving routes that open into terraces, pools, and clusters of fragrant blooms. The soft rustle of leaves accompanies the occasional trickle of water from small fountains, producing a rhythm both soothing and subtly guiding. Pavilions, strategically placed along these routes, offer moments of pause, opportunities to breathe, observe, or recite poetry, letting the garden's layered design orchestrate both movement and contemplation. A quirky detail appears when imagining certain moon gardens where steps were intentionally irregular, forcing a visitor to slow down and notice the surrounding beauty. This playful design element encourages mindfulness, blending gentle humor with the obvious purpose of promoting attention to detail. You might chuckle imagining a visitor tripping slightly over a low step, only to be rewarded by a perfectly framed reflection of the moon in a nearby pool. The interaction of light, shadow, and scent along these paths amplifies the sensory experience. Pale flowers shimmer subtly in moonlight, releasing fragrances that shift and intensify as the night deepens. Bamboo and cypress cast moving patterns across terraces, adding dynamic visual texture to the soft illumination. Even the occasional nocturnal insect contributes to the subtle symphony of sound, reminding you that the garden is a living, breathing entity. Every turn, rise, and curve of these paths reinforces the careful balance of function, aesthetics, and symbolism. Moonlight becomes a co-designer, tracing lines of reflection, highlighting specific vistas, and encouraging visitors to slow down, reflect, and engage deeply with the space. In wandering these imagined lanes, you feel the interplay of human intention and natural rhythm, a dance choreographed over centuries to harmonize movement, sight, scent, and celestial observation. You step into the imagined architecture of the moon garden, noting how pavilions, terraces, and platforms were meticulously aligned with lunar cycles. One obvious truth emerges immediately. Humans have long sought to connect built space with celestial patterns, creating harmony between earthly structure and heavenly movement. Fringe stories suggest that some platforms were positioned so that during a full moon, light would illuminate specific carvings or inscriptions, turning the garden itself into a subtle nocturnal observatory. Historians still debate whether these alignments were primarily ceremonial, practical, or a playful blend of both, but the precision and intention behind them are undeniable. You wander across a terrace, imagining the gentle steps of a visitor approaching a pavilion designed to frame the waxing moon perfectly. The structure is simple yet elegant, columns carved with delicate motifs, low walls catching light, and open windows aligned so that moonlight casts intricate patterns across the floor. Each architectural choice enhances the nocturnal experience, creating intentional pauses where one can breathe deeply, inhale the night air, and take in the interplay of geometry, water, and flora. A quirky detail surfaces as you consider that some pavilions included hidden recesses where scholars or poets could hide while observing others' reactions to moonlit reflections, an early form of subtle theater or social play. You might imagine a playful noble peeking from behind a marble column, enjoying the slightly mischievous side of garden design. Humor and human curiosity mingle with architectural planning, adding layers of experience beyond simple aesthetics. Light, shadow, and perspective are orchestrated carefully. Terraces rise gradually, creating elevated vantage points to watch the moon climb higher in the sky. Pools and reflective surfaces are placed strategically so that visitors can see the moon's glow duplicated across water, stone, and foliage. The movement of the moon across the sky subtly animates the garden, transforming it slowly over the course of the night. Every platform and pavilion reflects careful thought about human engagement with celestial rhythms. You feel the deliberate balance of observation, reflection, and wonder embedded in the stone and wood, a tactile dialogue between human design and lunar cycles. In imagining yourself stepping along these terraces, you sense the centuries of attention, intention, and playful curiosity invested in crafting spaces where the moon can be experienced fully, visually, emotionally, and spiritually. You wander among the imagined sculptures scattered throughout the moon garden, each one a whisper of legend, myth, or celestial narrative. One obvious truth surfaces immediately. Storytelling has always been entwined with human spaces, a way to encode culture, belief, and imagination in stone, metal, or wood. Fringe accounts claim that some statues were intentionally crafted to move under moonlight, with elongated shadows shifting across terraces to enact silent dramas, a nocturnal theater choreographed by light and imagination. Historians still argue whether these subtle effects were intentional, coincidental, or exaggerated in later tales, but the interplay of sculpture, shadow, and story undeniably enriched the garden experience. You imagine a small pavilion guarded by a finely carved lion, its eyes catching the silver glow, while nearby, a nymph bends delicately toward a reflecting pool. Each sculpture not only decorates but guides the visitor's attention, subtly directing the gaze toward water, terraces, or carefully positioned flower beds. In the quiet, these figures seem almost alive, their static forms animated by moonlight and your own movement through the space. The garden becomes a narrative in 3 dimensions, telling stories without a single word spoken aloud. A quirky detail emerges when you consider that some sculptors included hidden symbols in the carvings, tiny crescents, stars, or abstract shapes meant to be noticed only under certain lunar angles. You might chuckle imagining a visitor leaning closer to detect these subtle marks, feeling like a secret was shared only with those attentive enough to observe. This playful interaction adds another layer to the garden, merging curiosity, humor, and discovery. The combination of visual storytelling and movement through the garden deepens engagement. Visitors trace paths that lead from one sculpted scene to another, each vantage point offering a slightly different interpretation. Pools duplicate figures and shimmering reflections. Terraces frame statues with shifting light, and subtle elevation changes allow for contemplative pauses where one can ponder both the myth and the mechanics of light itself. Every sculpture, shadow, and reflective detail contributes to a multi-layered nocturnal narrative. The garden becomes not just a physical space, but a living storybook where geometry, light, water, and art converge to evoke wonder and introspection. You sense the centuries of careful planning, artistic intent, and playful ingenuity embedded in every stone, feeling simultaneously like a participant and an observer in a timeless nocturnal drama beneath the patient gaze of the moon. You drift through the imagined garden as night deepens, and the soft rustle of leaves seems almost like punctuation to a silent verse. Poetry was an inseparable companion to moonlit strolls, woven into the very air and architecture of Persian gardens. One obvious truth is that humans have always sought to pair natural beauty with words, as if language can somehow capture the ineffable shimmer of moonlight. Fringe accounts hint that some verses were composed specifically to rhyme with the subtle shadows cast by fountains or trellises, creating an immersive literary and visual experience. Historians still argue whether these poems were meant primarily for private reflection or as performative art, but the pervasive presence of verse enhances the meditative quality of the garden. You imagine stepping along a terrace where carved inscriptions echo the cadence of whispered poetry. Perhaps a line of verse invites you to pause beside a reflective pool, consider the fleeting bloom of a night flower, or marvel at a sculpture's silhouette under the waxing moon. Each word seems chosen to harmonize with sight, scent, and sound, turning the garden into a multi-sensory reading experience. The gentle rhythm of recitation, whether spoken aloud or internalized, blends seamlessly with the soft trickle of water and rustle of leaves, making the act of wandering both intellectual and sensory. A quirky detail is that some poems included playful metaphors, suggesting, for instance, that moonbeams themselves might carry messages between lovers hidden within the garden. You might chuckle imagining a young noble following beams of reflected light as if they were literal notes, decoding love letters written in silver across the terrace. Such blending of metaphor, humor, and design reflects the layered intentions of these spaces, inviting both contemplation and amusement. The placement of poetry within the garden follows a subtle choreography. Verses appear at thresholds, along paths, or near water features, often aligned with sight lines toward moonlit pavilions or shimmering pools. The poetry enhances both narrative and atmosphere, encouraging a gentle wandering that combines observation, reflection, and delight. In moving through these imagined spaces, you sense that the designers understood the emotional resonance of words as fully as they did water, stone, and plantings. Poetry in the moon garden is not just decorative. It's experiential, a quiet dialogue between human creativity and the luminous, patient rhythm of the moon. Each line becomes a soft voice echoing through terraces and pathways, a companion to fragrance, shadow, and reflection. You stroll further, sensing the subtle shifts in flora as the seasons turn and the moon traces its eternal path across the sky. Seasonal awareness was central to Persian moon gardens, dictating not only what was planted but when it would bloom, scent, and shimmer under nocturnal light. One obvious truth is that the natural world changes relentlessly, and human design must accommodate this rhythm to maintain harmony. Fringe accounts suggest that some gardens were planned so that specific plants would reach peak bloom precisely during major lunar festivals, creating a timed nocturnal spectacle that combines scent, color, and reflection. Historians still argue whether this synchronization was based on empirical observation, symbolic timing, or poetic imagination, but the effect demonstrates extraordinary attention to temporal detail. You imagine tracing a path lined with jasmine, whose petals gradually unfold as the moon waxes, filling the night air with a delicate perfume. Nearby, a pale magnolia or silver-leaf shrub catches the moon's glow, signaling the changing season even in the dark. Pathways are adjusted subtly, and terraces are organized to present the most vivid reflections and vistas at optimal times, creating a sensory calendar that celebrates both lunar and seasonal cycles. A quirky detail appears in some manuscripts describing lunar gardens of renewal, where certain aromatic plants were deliberately interspersed with flowers that had a delayed bloom, so that the garden's nocturnal fragrance subtly evolved over weeks, reflecting the moon's changing phases. You might smile imagining a night visitor noticing this gentle progression, a natural performance unfolding under the patient gaze of the moon. The combination of timed bloom, scent, and light reflects an intricate understanding of both horticulture and sensory delight. The interaction of moonlight with seasonal flora transforms the garden throughout the year. Pools mirror pale petals differently as the moon rises higher or lower, shadows shift subtly as branches grow and recede, and fragrances wax and wane with ambient temperature and humidity. Each night becomes a slightly different experience, a unique interplay of temporal, spatial, and sensory factors that invites mindfulness and reflection. As you wander in thought, the garden emerges not as a static display, but as a living chronicle of cycles, celestial, seasonal, and human. Observing these subtle changes encourages patience, curiosity, and a gentle awareness of the passage of time. Every terrace, path, and bloom is part of an ongoing nocturnal dialogue between humans, plants, water, and moonlight, offering a quiet, immersive experience that is as educational as it is enchanting. You linger in the imagined garden as night deepens, letting the soft fragrances of nocturnal blooms envelop you. One obvious truth is that scent is a powerful connector, capable of evoking memory, emotion, and contemplation without a single word spoken. Persian moon gardens carefully curated aromatic plants for nighttime enjoyment. Jasmine, damask rose, night-blooming tuberose, and even delicately scented herbs. Fringe accounts suggest that some gardeners believed certain fragrances were enhanced by moonlight itself, a subtle interplay of biology and poetic imagination. Historians still debate whether this was scientifically plausible or more of a symbolic gesture, but the care devoted to scent shows its central role in shaping the moonlit experience. You imagine following a gently curving path lined with fragrant blooms, each inhalation drawing you deeper into the garden's nocturnal spell. The air is cool, moist, and filled with layered aromas that shift subtly as you move. A slight breeze carries petals' perfume across reflective pools, enhancing both the visual and olfactory senses. The effect is calming yet engaging, a form of sensory meditation that relies on human attention as much as natural elements. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some garden texts suggest arranging plants in concentric circles, so that stepping through the center creates a slow gradient of scent, a subtle olfactory journey designed to mimic the waxing and waning of the moon. You might picture a visitor pausing mid-step, savoring the evolving bouquet, and smiling at the thought that even aroma had choreography. This playful manipulation of scent demonstrates the multi-layered creativity embedded in garden design. Pools, fountains, and channels further influence fragrance. Moving water cools the air and diffuses aroma, while reflective surfaces amplify the sense of space and serenity. The combination of scent, sound, and moonlit reflection creates a quiet, immersive environment, turning a stroll into an orchestrated sensory ritual. In this nocturnal realm, fragrance is more than decoration. It is a subtle guide, drawing attention, setting pace, and enhancing contemplation. Each inhalation connects visitor, plant, and moonlight, reinforcing the garden's layered choreography. You feel enveloped in a holistic experience where scent and shadow, light and sound, converge to create a gentle, meditative harmony, inviting both introspection and quiet delight beneath the patient watch of the night sky. You wander along the imagined canals and reflective waterways of the moon garden, noticing how water functions as both a visual and auditory guide. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to moving water, finding it calming, rhythmic, and almost hypnotic. In Persian moon gardens, channels were often laid out to direct moonlight across terraces and pools, creating shifting reflections that changed with the visitor's movement. Fringe tales claim that some channels were engineered so that the moon's reflection would travel along the water, seemingly following the visitor, a subtle illusion that delighted and mesmerized. Historians still debate whether such effects were deliberate optical design or coincidental, but the intricate planning suggests an extraordinary attention to detail. You imagine stepping carefully along narrow walkways flanked by low walls, the gentle ripple of water echoing softly around the garden. Pools, fountains, and shallow streams provide both auditory pleasure and visual interest, reflecting moonlight and framing vistas of plants, sculptures, and terraces. Water amplifies the sense of depth and movement, creating an almost cinematic experience in miniature. Its gentle murmur accompanies footsteps, rustling leaves, and distant calls of night birds, blending natural and constructed sounds into a nocturnal symphony. A quirky detail appears in some records suggesting that garden designers incorporated subtle curves or stones to create tiny cascades that enhance the sparkle of moonlit water. You might chuckle imagining a visitor pausing to admire the playful sparkle, unaware that the effect was carefully calibrated. This gentle interplay of sound, light, and motion adds layers of delight, blending observation, imagination, and quiet humor. Reflective surfaces also serve as metaphors, doubling the moon above and emphasizing themes of symmetry and balance that permeate Persian garden philosophy. Pools mirror terraces, flowers, and architecture, creating illusions of expanded space and a sense of intimacy with the heavens. Water channels guide the eye, subtly orchestrating attention while fostering reflection, both literal and contemplative. In wandering these imagined waterways, you sense how deeply human design sought harmony with natural rhythms. Water is more than decoration. It is a medium, a guide, and a storyteller, amplifying moonlight, scent, and sound. Each ripple, reflection, and soft murmur transforms movement into meditation, turning the simple act of strolling into an immersive experience that intertwines the senses, imagination, and celestial observation in quiet nocturnal wonder. You trace the imagined pathways leading to elevated terraces, where the interplay of light, air, and perspective deepens the garden's nocturnal magic. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to vantage points, seeking broader views to understand and appreciate space. In Persian moon gardens, terraces were carefully raised to offer sweeping vistas of pools, flower beds, and reflective channels, all aligned to capture the moon's arc across the sky. Fringe accounts suggest that some terrace designs incorporated subtle optical illusions, making certain moonlit reflections appear closer or more luminous than they really were. Historians still argue whether these effects were intentional or coincidental, but the thoughtful integration of elevation and perspective is undeniable. You imagine stepping onto a smooth marble terrace, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet, and inhaling the layered fragrances of night-blooming flora. The terrace offers a visual anchor, allowing you to take in the garden's geometry and appreciate the subtle choreography of paths, pools, and pavilions. From this elevated point, reflections on water surfaces shift as the moon rises, and shadows stretch and bend across terraces and walls, creating a dynamic nocturnal landscape. The design encourages slow, contemplative movement, inviting the visitor to pause, breathe, and notice subtle interactions between light, water, and plantings. A quirky detail surfaces when you consider that some terraces featured angled steps or platforms designed to create unexpected reflections of specific flowers or sculptures at particular lunar phases. You might smile imagining a visitor leaning closer, discovering a fleeting alignment that seems almost magical, an ephemeral reward for attention and patience. This playful layering of geometry, light, and observation reflects the thoughtful and whimsical nature of garden design. Sound, too, is carefully considered at elevation. The gentle murmur of water channels and fountains carries differently across terraces, creating shifting auditory textures that enhance contemplation and immersion. Combined with the scent of jasmine or moonflower wafting upward, these terraces offer a multisensory pause, a stage for both private reflection and subtle social interaction. As you linger on these imagined heights, it becomes clear that terraces serve more than functional or aesthetic purposes. They orchestrate the visitor's experience, guiding attention, pacing, and emotion. Elevated perspectives allow you to witness the garden as a living, breathing entity, a dynamic interplay of earth, water, light, and scent. In this elevated space, the moonlight feels closer, the reflections sharper, and the sense of connection to both the garden and the cosmos profoundly heightened. You drift toward the imagined alcoves and hidden corners, spaces designed for quiet reflection and private conversation. One obvious truth is that humans naturally seek refuge and intimacy, even in expansive, grand gardens. Persian moon gardens skillfully balanced openness and seclusion, using hedges, trellises, and terraces to carve small sanctuaries where visitors could pause without feeling exposed. Fringe stories suggest that some alcoves were arranged so the moonlight would peek through at specific angles, spotlighting a lone visitor in a soft, ethereal glow. Historians still debate whether these effects were intentional design choices or serendipitous, but the sense of secluded enchantment is palpable. You imagine stepping into a shaded niche, the air cooler and denser with the mingled fragrances of nearby night-blooming flowers. The subtle trickle of water from a nearby channel forms a private soundtrack, its rhythm slightly different from the louder fountains in the central terraces. Here, time seems to slow, inviting introspection, whispered conversation, or quiet reading of poetry. The alcoves encourage you to linger, allowing the garden's sensory layering, light, scent, sound, to settle in and envelop your awareness. A quirky detail arises in some accounts of alcoves that contain small platforms designed to catch moonlight in unexpected ways, illuminating inscriptions, tiles, or carved motifs for fleeting moments. You might chuckle imagining a visitor leaning closer, discovering a poem or symbol only revealed under precise lunar illumination. This interplay of light and discovery adds a subtle layer of interactive delight, blending observation, curiosity, and gentle humor. Pathways connecting these secluded corners were often meandering, ensuring that arrival felt like a journey rather than a shortcut. Shadowed walls, low hedges, and strategically placed fountains guided visitors' footsteps, creating a sense of anticipation and revelation. The spatial choreography emphasizes both privacy and discovery, turning each pause into a small narrative of its own. In wandering these imagined alcoves, you realize that the garden is as much about intimate experience as spectacle. Each corner, each subtle shift in moonlight or fragrance, is designed to engage the senses, emotions, and imagination, offering private sanctuaries for reflection while reinforcing the larger rhythm and harmony of the nocturnal space. In this quiet interplay of design and nature, the garden encourages you to notice, to pause, and to feel a gentle connection to both human intention and celestial cycles. You wander next into imagined groves within the moon garden, where clusters of trees form canopies that filter and diffuse lunar light. One obvious truth is that humans find comfort in partial enclosure. Dappled light and shadow create both intrigue and a sense of protection. Fringe accounts suggest that some groves were planted with alternating species so that the moonlight would shimmer differently across foliage types, producing a subtly animated tapestry of silver and shadow. Historians still debate whether these planting patterns were scientifically calculated, aesthetically intuitive, or partly guided by folklore, but the visual effect enhances the nocturnal ambience unmistakably. You imagine walking under the soft rustling of leaves, their tops catching moonlight while shadows dance across the ground. Each step produces tiny scents, cool, earthy, sometimes floral, blended with the delicate aroma of night-blooming plants interspersed within the grove. The experience is immersive. You see, hear, smell, and almost feel the gentle interplay of light and movement, a subtle orchestration of sensory engagement. The groves provide shelter and intimacy, yet the filtered moonlight ensures that the garden's luminous presence is never fully hidden. A quirky detail emerges when you consider that some trees were planted with intentional asymmetry, so that the moon's reflection in nearby pools would appear to shift or ripple as you move beneath them. You might chuckle imagining a visitor pausing mid-step, convinced the moonlight itself is wandering playfully along the paths. This subtle manipulation of perception adds layers of delight, blending observation, imagination, and quiet amusement. Pathways winding through groves were often narrow, encouraging slow, deliberate movement. Small benches or low stone platforms offered rest, framing views of reflections on water or glimpses of distant terraces. The architecture of natural and constructed elements intertwined seamlessly, fostering curiosity, contemplation, and sensory engagement. In these imagined groves, the garden reveals its multidimensional design. Trees, light, shadow, scent, and water collaborate to create a living, breathing nocturnal space. The groves offer moments of intimacy and playful discovery, reinforcing the broader narrative of the garden as a carefully orchestrated experience. Each rustle of leaves, each shimmer of reflected moonlight, becomes part of a gentle, meditative dialogue between human intention, natural rhythms, and the ever-present glow of the moon above. You meander into the imagined garden's central fountains, where the sound of water provides a gentle, hypnotic rhythm. One obvious truth is that flowing water has long been used to calm the mind and structure spaces, its movement both auditory and visual. Fringe anecdotes claim that some fountains were designed to amplify the moon's reflection, creating sparkling, shifting patterns on surrounding terraces, as if the water itself were dancing with lunar light. Historians still debate whether these optical effects were deliberately engineered or accidental, but the combination of sound, movement, and reflection undeniably enriches the nocturnal experience. You imagine stepping closer, feeling the cool mist from the fountains brushing your skin, carrying delicate scents from nearby night-blooming flora. The gentle, rhythmic splash creates a soothing backdrop, masking distant sounds and deepening your sense of immersion. Water channels, carefully angled, guide light and fragrance along subtle paths, creating both visual continuity and sensory layering. Each fountain acts as a focal point, drawing attention while blending seamlessly into the larger tapestry of terraces, pools, and flower beds. A quirky detail emerges in some descriptions. Certain fountains were aligned so that during specific lunar phases, the water seemed to sparkle or shimmer more intensely, a playful trick of geometry, light, and motion. You might imagine a visitor leaning forward to trace the moon's reflection, smiling at the fleeting illusion, feeling momentarily part of a secret choreography devised by garden designers. These playful elements encourage attentive observation and create small, rewarding surprises along the journey. Beyond aesthetics, fountains served practical and symbolic roles. The sound of moving water cools the air and enhances contemplation, while reflecting pools amplify light and spatial perception. Strategically placed fountains also reinforce rhythm and pacing, guiding visitors through terraces and groves while subtly shaping the nocturnal experience. As you linger by these imagined fountains, the garden's intricate orchestration becomes apparent. Every ripple, reflection, and soft splash of water is carefully integrated with light, plantings, and pathways. The combination of auditory and visual cues draws the visitor into a layered, contemplative experience, where sensory perception, imagination, and the patient glow of the moon converge in serene, playful harmony. You step along the imagined pathways toward the garden's moonlit terraces designed for meditation and reflection. One obvious truth is that humans are naturally drawn to spaces that invite stillness, offering a chance to pause and process surroundings. Fringe stories suggest that some terraces were intentionally aligned so that moonlight would illuminate certain inscriptions or carvings only during specific phases, creating ephemeral moments of insight or delight. Historians still debate whether these alignments were practical, symbolic, or simply aesthetic, but the effect is undeniably enchanting, enhancing the sense of discovery and wonder. You picture yourself settling onto a low stone bench, inhaling the cool, fragrant air mingled with the subtle scent of night-blooming jasmine. The soft murmur of a nearby fountain accompanies distant rustling leaves, producing a meditative rhythm that eases thought and encourages introspection. From this vantage, the garden stretches out before you, a mosaic of pools, groves, and terraces, each subtly interacting with light, shadow, and lunar reflection. The careful choreography of design guides attention, allowing your gaze to wander, rest, and return with gentle curiosity. A quirky detail arises when considering that some terraces included slight depressions or channels to direct water in patterns that would ripple across reflective surfaces, subtly enhancing moonlit reflections. You might smile imagining a visitor noticing the shifting light and water interplay, feeling as though the moon itself were performing a quiet, private show. This playful, interactive design element encourages both observation and gentle amusement. Terrace design also integrates social and solitary functions. Small alcoves provide privacy, while open platforms invite quiet conversation or shared reflection. Steps and railings guide movement at a measured pace, subtly controlling the visitor's journey and encouraging mindful engagement with the environment. As you linger in these imagined spaces, the terraces reveal their layered purpose: architectural precision, sensory delight, and celestial choreography intertwined. Moonlight, water, fragrance, and shadow work in concert to create a serene environment, inviting contemplation, gentle curiosity, and an intimate connection to both the garden and the night sky. The terraces act as nodes of experience, orchestrating pauses and discoveries that reinforce the timeless rhythm of Persian moon gardens under lunar illumination. You wander into the imagined garden's elevated observation decks, platforms designed to frame panoramic views of both the moon and the surrounding landscape. One obvious truth is that humans instinctively seek perspective, craving the ability to see beyond immediate surroundings to comprehend spatial relationships. Fringe accounts suggest that some decks were carefully oriented so that the moon would rise directly over distant hills or water bodies, creating a dramatic visual alignment that heightened the sense of cosmic connection. Historians still debate whether these alignments were calculated with mathematical precision or emerged from aesthetic intuition, but the visual and emotional impact is unmistakable. You imagine stepping onto a smooth stone platform, feeling the cool night air brush your skin as the garden stretches below. Pools, terraces, and groves are arranged like a living mosaic, their geometry highlighted by the moon's reflection and the subtle flicker of lanterns or torches long extinguished. From this vantage point, you notice the interplay of light and shadow across every surface, the rhythmic flow of water channels, and the gentle swaying of bamboo and cypress. The garden's nocturnal choreography unfolds slowly, inviting your attention and contemplation. A quirky detail appears in some historical accounts suggesting that certain observation decks incorporated small wind channels or recessed areas that allowed subtle breezes to carry fragrance from distant flower beds. You might imagine a visitor inhaling deeply, smiling at the faint, shifting scent of jasmine mingled with night-blooming tuberose, feeling an almost magical connection to space, air, and plant life. This sensory layering demonstrates the playful ingenuity of garden designers, blending practical comfort with poetic effect. Sound and scent converge with sight on these decks. The murmur of fountains, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional nocturnal call of a bird create a gentle auditory backdrop, while fragrances rise in faint waves, subtly influencing mood and perception. The decks encourage extended observation, meditation, and social engagement, providing both a physical and emotional platform from which to experience the garden in its entirety. As you linger on these imagined platforms, it becomes clear that observation decks serve as both literal and metaphorical high points. They orchestrate perception, guide attention, and enhance the emotional resonance of moonlight and garden design. Every element, light, shadow, fragrance, and sound, converges to create an immersive, contemplative experience, reinforcing the profound interplay between human intention, natural rhythms, and celestial observation under the patient gaze of the moon. You move along winding paths toward the garden's secluded glades, spaces designed to cultivate quiet reflection and intimate encounters. One obvious truth is that humans are drawn to natural enclosures, which provide a sense of shelter and focus while still offering glimpses of the wider environment. Fringe stories suggest that some glades were planted so that moonlight would filter through at particular angles, illuminating hidden inscriptions, carvings, or delicate flowers in ways that changed with the lunar cycle. Historians still debate whether these effects were intentional, symbolic, or coincidental, but the resulting interplay of shadow, light, and discovery undeniably enriches the nocturnal experience. You imagine stepping into a glade where the air is cooler, scented with night-blooming flowers, and filled with the gentle murmur of distant water. Trees and shrubs form a natural canopy, diffusing moonlight into soft, dappled patterns across the ground. Each movement you make changes the angle of light and shadow, offering subtle visual surprises and enhancing the immersive experience. The garden becomes a dynamic space, shifting in response to your presence while remaining serenely ordered by human design. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some glades contain small, strategically placed stones or low benches that created unexpected reflections or echoed footsteps in amusing ways. You might smile imagining a visitor pausing mid-step, hearing a subtle reply from the stones, and feeling a fleeting sense of enchantment. This playful integration of sound and spatial design encourages attentiveness, curiosity, and quiet amusement. Pathways within the glade are intentionally meandering, prompting slow, deliberate movement and allowing the senses to absorb the layered environment fully. Light, scent, sound, and texture interact, guiding both perception and emotion. The glades act as intimate theaters of nature and design, encouraging meditation, storytelling, or whispered conversation. In these imagined glades, the moon garden's philosophy of immersive, sensory-rich experience becomes clear. Every element, from filtered light to fragrant blossoms, from gentle water sounds to the subtle geometry of paths, works in concert to create a contemplative, playful, and deeply human nocturnal space. Here, you are both observer and participant, moving within a carefully orchestrated dance of nature, architecture, and moonlight. You arrive at the imagined garden's celestial alignment terraces, where architecture and planting converge to track lunar cycles. One obvious truth is that humans have long observed the moon's movements, using them to measure time, plan rituals, and align sacred spaces. Fringe accounts suggest that some terraces were calibrated so that specific plants, sculptures, or water features would interact with moonlight during certain phases, creating a living lunar calendar. Historians still debate whether these alignments were precise astronomical tools or largely symbolic, but the integration of celestial observation with aesthetic design remains a hallmark of Persian moon gardens. You imagine standing on a raised terrace, tracing the arc of the moon as it rises and sets, and noting how shadows shift across pools and flower beds. The terrace guides your gaze, orchestrating both attention and reflection. Carefully planted cypress or mulberry trees frame the horizon, their silhouettes accentuated by the moon's glow. Pathways and water channels are aligned to catch reflections at key moments, creating a subtle but dynamic interplay of light, geometry, and natural growth. A quirky detail emerges in some accounts describing small markers or inscriptions embedded in terraces, indicating the position of the moon on certain nights of the year. You might picture a visitor leaning in to decipher these tiny symbols, feeling a secret connection to celestial rhythms long before the convenience of modern astronomy. These subtle guides blend education, observation, and playful discovery, inviting attention and engagement without fanfare. The terraces also serve as social and meditative spaces. Visitors may pause alone or in small groups to discuss poetry, contemplate design, or simply enjoy the interplay of moonlight, shadows, and reflections. Pools mirror the sky above, doubling the visual drama while reinforcing the garden's connection to cosmic cycles. The choreography of light, water, and plantings encourages both reflection and gentle movement, transforming observation into a multisensory experience. As you linger on these imagined alignment terraces, the garden's sophistication becomes apparent. Each stone, plant, and water feature participates in a larger narrative, where lunar observation, artistic intent, and sensory delight converge. The terraces remind you that moon gardens are not merely ornamental. They are dynamic, interactive spaces where human perception, nature, and celestial cycles meet, creating a quiet, contemplative harmony that unfolds slowly beneath the patient, watchful moon. You drift into the imagined garden's aromatic corridors, narrow passages lined with fragrant night-blooming plants that guide you deeper into sensory discovery. One obvious truth is that scent profoundly influences mood and memory, capable of evoking calm or stirring reflection. Fringe accounts suggest that some corridors were designed with alternating aromatic plants so that as you walked, each step presented a subtly shifting bouquet, almost like a fragrant symphony. Historians still debate whether these combinations were empirically tested or guided more by tradition and poetic intuition, but the effect is immersive and undeniably soothing. You imagine stepping along the corridor, inhaling layers of jasmine, damask rose, and tuberose. The scent is cool, slightly damp, and mingled with the earthy aroma of soil and stone. Each inhalation draws your awareness outward and inward simultaneously, encouraging mindfulness of both environment and sensation. The moonlight filters through trellises and arches, catching silvered leaves and petals in soft highlights that enhance the olfactory and visual experience. A quirky detail appears when considering that some corridors contained hidden niches with subtle water trickles designed to carry fragrance further, guiding attention to specific points of interest. You might picture a visitor pausing to appreciate a sudden burst of jasmine, wondering if the garden itself is teasing them with small, ephemeral surprises. This playful integration of scent, water, and spatial design underscores the thoughtfulness and whimsy inherent in moon garden planning. Pathways through aromatic corridors are intentionally winding, slowing movement and encouraging attentive observation. Subtle shifts in elevation, occasional benches, and glimpses of reflective pools or sculptures keep your senses engaged while reinforcing a rhythm of gentle exploration. The corridors offer both privacy and discovery, creating intimate experiences within the larger nocturnal tapestry of the garden. In these imagined aromatic corridors, you sense the delicate balance between human intention and natural cycles. Moonlight, scent, water, and texture converge, transforming a simple walk into a meditative journey. Each inhalation and visual cue invites reflection, curiosity, and quiet delight, demonstrating how the garden orchestrates layered, immersive experiences that harmonize the senses under the patient watch of the moon. You continue into the imagined garden's reflecting pools, wide basins designed to mirror moonlight and surrounding foliage. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to water surfaces, finding them calming, contemplative, and visually expansive. Fringe stories suggest that some pools were shaped and positioned so the moon's reflection appeared to float or subtly shift as you moved along the garden paths. Historians still debate whether these optical effects were calculated with precision or emerged more from aesthetic intuition, yet the experience is undeniably immersive and enchanting. You imagine stepping closer to a shallow pool, the cool air above it carrying soft floral scents, the water perfectly still except for gentle ripples from a hidden fountain. Moonlight strikes the surface at just the right angle, doubling the luminous glow of nearby blossoms and architecture. Your reflection mingles with that of the sky and surrounding trees, creating a layered, almost surreal visual experience. The design encourages observation, mindfulness, and a playful curiosity, inviting you to notice subtle shifts in light, shadow, and water movement. A quirky detail emerges in some historical accounts describing tiny stepping stones or low bridges that allow visitors to cross pools without disturbing their stillness, creating brief moments when reflections perfectly align with architectural features or plants. You might smile imagining someone pausing mid-step, marveling at how the moon seems to follow them or how a flower appears to float on water. These delicate interactions reinforce the whimsical, participatory nature of the garden experience. Pools also integrate sound and scent. Trickling water cools the air and carries fragrance, while the quiet plash of fountains creates a subtle, rhythmic backdrop. The reflective surfaces expand spatial perception, making the garden feel larger, more layered, and subtly dynamic under the patient glow of the moon. In these imagined reflecting pools, the garden's philosophy of multisensory orchestration becomes clear. Water, light, scent, and movement interact to create a contemplative, immersive space where observation and presence are rewarded. Each ripple, shadow, and reflection invites attention, curiosity, and gentle delight, reinforcing the delicate, nocturnal choreography that defines the Persian moon garden experience. You wander toward the imagined garden's sculpted terraces, areas adorned with carved stone, marble, and subtle ornamentation that interacts with moonlight. One obvious truth is that humans naturally gravitate toward art and craftsmanship, finding aesthetic detail engaging and emotionally resonant. Fringe anecdotes suggest that certain carvings were designed to catch moonlight at specific angles, casting delicate shadows or illuminating patterns only during precise lunar phases. Historians still debate whether these effects were rigorously calculated or primarily intuitive, but the integration of artistry with natural light undeniably adds another layer of wonder to the garden. You imagine stepping onto a terrace, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet while admiring intricate geometric patterns, floral motifs, and occasionally, calligraphic inscriptions. The moon's reflection subtly alters each carving, creating shifting shadows and highlights that reward attentive observation. Each detail feels alive, responding to changing light and movement, as though the terrace itself is quietly interacting with you. The interplay of stone and lunar illumination provides a visual rhythm, complementing the auditory backdrop of fountains and rustling leaves. A quirky detail arises when considering that some sculpted elements contained hidden channels for water, creating a faint, melodic trickle that seemed to emanate from the carvings themselves. You might smile imagining a visitor pausing to listen, half expecting the stones to whisper secrets of the night. This playful combination of sound, visual art, and architectural design encourages curiosity, mindfulness, and gentle amusement. Terraces were also functional spaces for social gathering, poetry recitation, or silent contemplation. The arrangement of steps, low walls, and ornamental features guides movement, providing natural pauses for observation and reflection. The careful alignment of sculpted surfaces with moonlight and sightlines ensures that each moment, whether spent in solitude or company, is imbued with layered sensory engagement. In these imagined sculpted terraces, the garden's philosophy of immersive experience becomes evident. Light, shadow, texture, and sound converge, creating dynamic interactions that reward attention and curiosity. Each carved motif, each shifting highlight, encourages reflection and quiet delight, reinforcing the Persian moon garden's harmonious blend of human artistry, natural beauty, and celestial rhythm. You drift into the imagined garden's elevated pavilions, open-air structures that serve as both resting places and observation points. One obvious truth is that humans naturally seek spaces that offer both shelter and a broader perspective, combining comfort with expanded vision. Fringe accounts suggest that some pavilions were aligned so that moonlight would cast intricate shadows across lattice screens or patterned floors during specific lunar phases. Historians still debate whether these alignments were calculated with mathematical precision or emerged more intuitively from design aesthetics, but the effect amplifies the sense of wonder and quiet engagement with the environment. You imagine stepping into a pavilion, feeling the cool stone floor and the gentle breeze sweeping through ornate openings. The scent of nearby night-blooming flowers drifts in, mixing with the faint earthy aroma of soil and water. From this vantage point, the garden stretches out beneath you, terraces, pools, and groves unfolding like a carefully arranged painting. Moonlight filters through trellis work and carved panels, creating patterns that shift subtly as you move or as clouds drift across the sky. A quirky detail arises when considering that some pavilions were intentionally positioned near water channels or reflective pools so that the moon's reflection would shimmer beneath the structure, doubling the visual spectacle. You might chuckle imagining a visitor tilting their head, trying to trace the ethereal play of light on both the floor and the water's surface, feeling an almost magical connection to the nocturnal space. These moments of subtle interaction reward observation and curiosity, blending pleasure, mindfulness, and playful discovery. Pavilions also functioned as social and contemplative hubs. Visitors could gather for conversation, poetry, or quiet reflection, all while remaining enveloped in the garden's nocturnal ambience. The combination of open design, fragrance, sound, and light ensures that time spent in a pavilion feels both intimate and expansive. As you linger in these imagined pavilions, the garden's layered orchestration becomes apparent. Each breeze, pattern, and reflection is carefully choreographed to enhance sensory engagement and emotional resonance. Light, shadow, fragrance, and sound converge to create a serene, immersive experience, inviting you to pause, observe, and feel a deep connection to both the crafted environment and the luminous rhythm of the moon above. You drift toward the imagined garden's moonlit grottos, small sheltered spaces carved into terraces or surrounded by dense plantings. One obvious truth is that humans have long found intimacy and curiosity in hidden or enclosed spaces, drawn to secret corners that invite exploration. Fringe stories suggest that some grottos were designed so that moonlight would penetrate through narrow openings, casting dramatic, shifting patterns across walls, floors, and water basins. Historians still debate whether these effects were meticulously engineered or serendipitous, but the result creates a sense of wonder and discovery that enhances the nocturnal experience. You imagine stepping into a grotto, feeling the cooler air and a subtle dampness that carries the fragrance of nearby night-blooming plants. The soft echo of distant fountains or trickling channels amplifies the quiet, turning every sound into part of a gentle, immersive soundtrack. Moonlight filters in through latticed openings or slits, illuminating carved motifs, inscriptions, or small reflective pools, creating fleeting, magical effects that reward careful observation. A quirky detail arises when considering that some grottos incorporated tiny hidden mirrors or polished stones positioned to catch moonlight and amplify reflections. You might picture a visitor leaning forward, tracing the moon's reflection as it bounces across a surface, feeling momentarily part of the garden's secret choreography. These subtle, playful touches demonstrate the designer's ingenuity and their attention to multisensory delight. Paths leading to grottos are intentionally winding and narrow, encouraging deliberate steps and attentive observation. The combination of sound, scent, and filtered light engages multiple senses simultaneously, transforming simple movement into contemplative experience. These spaces provide privacy and quiet pause, balancing the expansive vistas and terraces elsewhere in the garden. In these imagined moonlit grottos, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered sensory experience and careful orchestration becomes clear. Each shadow, reflected light, whisper of sound, and waft of fragrance is deliberately integrated, creating a secluded, contemplative environment. Here, the garden invites exploration, observation, and quiet delight, reinforcing the sense of intimate connection between human perception, natural cycles, and the ever-present, patient glow of the moon. You wander toward the imagined garden's labyrinthine pathways, narrow meandering routes designed to encourage slow exploration and careful observation. One obvious truth is that humans are naturally drawn to journeys that combine mystery with gentle challenge, enjoying the anticipation of discovery. Fringe accounts suggest that some paths were intentionally aligned so that moonlight would fall selectively, illuminating certain plants, carvings, or water reflections only at specific angles or times. Historians still debate whether these alignments were meticulously planned or arose from intuitive design, but the effect creates an immersive, playful, and contemplative experience. You imagine stepping along the winding path, the stone beneath your feet cool and slightly uneven, guiding your pace and attention. Fragrance from night-blooming flowers drifts upward, mingling with the earthy aroma of soil and water channels. Each turn reveals new vistas, glimpses of terraces, pools, or grottos, framed in shifting moonlight and shadow. The path encourages observation, curiosity, and mindfulness, rewarding patient exploration with visual, auditory, and olfactory delights. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some labyrinthine routes included subtle markers or small sculptures positioned to catch moonlight, creating fleeting illuminations that seem almost magical. You might smile imagining a visitor pausing mid-turn, catching the shimmer of light on a carved motif or reflecting pool, feeling as if the garden itself is playing a quiet game of hide-and-seek. These small, ephemeral surprises reward attentiveness and heighten the sense of enchantment. The meandering design also promotes slow, deliberate movement, fostering reflection and engagement with both the environment and your own thoughts. Subtle elevation changes, small benches, and occasional resting spots encourage mindful pauses, allowing you to absorb the interplay of moonlight, shadow, water, and flora. In these imagined labyrinthine pathways, the garden demonstrates its intricate orchestration of sensory and cognitive experience. Light, scent, sound, and spatial design converge to create a dynamic, contemplative journey where each step offers new discovery. The paths transform wandering into meditation, encouraging gentle curiosity and a profound appreciation for the interplay between human intention, natural beauty, and the enduring presence of the moon overhead. You move into the imagined garden's ornamental pools, smaller basins dotted with floating flowers, lanterns, or gently rippling water channels. One obvious truth is that humans are naturally drawn to water features, finding them soothing, reflective, and rhythmically engaging. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some ornamental pools were designed so that moonlight would illuminate specific floral arrangements, casting shimmering patterns across the water and surrounding stones. Historians still debate whether these effects were carefully engineered or largely serendipitous, but the resulting ambience encourages meditation, observation, and quiet delight. You imagine stepping closer, peering into the surface of a still pool where floating lotus petals catch moonlight, their edges shimmering with a soft silver glow. The subtle splash of a hidden fountain or the gentle ripple from a passing breeze adds movement and sound, completing the multisensory tableau. Reflections of trees, lattices, and carved terraces overlay one another in delicate patterns, as if the garden itself is performing a quiet, nocturnal ballet. A quirky detail arises when considering that some pools incorporated small floating markers or polished stones that subtly change the direction of reflected moonlight. You might picture a visitor experimenting with the placement of petals or pebbles, discovering unexpected patterns, and feeling a sense of playful engagement with the garden's nocturnal choreography. These small interactions highlight the designer's attention to subtle delight, turning observation into gentle participation. Ornamental pools were often connected with pathways or terraces, guiding visitors' movement while providing repeated moments of pause. The combination of sight, sound, scent, and tactile perception creates a layered, immersive experience. These pools serve both aesthetic and contemplative purposes, offering beauty, rhythm, and gentle surprise within the broader nocturnal environment. In these imagined ornamental pools, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered sensory orchestration becomes apparent. Light, shadow, water, and fragrance work together to create fleeting yet memorable experiences, inviting observation, curiosity, and quiet reflection. Each ripple, shimmer, and sound contributes to a serene, interactive environment, reinforcing the intimate connection between human perception, natural rhythms, and the patient, luminous presence of the moon above. You wander into the imagined garden's celestial stairways, gently rising steps designed to guide visitors upward while framing views of terraces, pools, and the night sky. One obvious truth is that elevation changes naturally attract human attention, offering new perspectives and a sense of progression. Fringe accounts suggest that some stairways were aligned so that moonlight would create fleeting shadows or illuminate decorative elements only at specific times, producing ephemeral effects that enhance the nocturnal experience. Historians still debate whether these alignments were carefully calculated or primarily intuitive, but the visual impact and sense of discovery are undeniable. You imagine stepping carefully up the cool stone steps, feeling the subtle incline underfoot, while inhaling a mingling of night-blooming floral scents and the faint earthy aroma of nearby terraces. Each step frames new vistas, glimpses of reflective pools, groves, or distant pavilions bathed in soft lunar glow. The stairway encourages deliberate movement, mindful attention, and observation of shifting light and shadow. Moonlight plays across surfaces, creating patterns that shift with every angle, rewarding the patient and attentive visitor. A quirky detail arises when considering that some stairways incorporated small niches or inlaid stones that caught the moonlight, creating miniature illuminations along the ascent. You might picture a visitor pausing to trace the sparkling patterns with their gaze, feeling as though the garden itself is guiding their journey in a quiet, playful manner. These subtle interactions enhance curiosity, contemplation, and engagement with the nocturnal environment. The stairways also serve functional and aesthetic purposes. They connect terraces and observation points while naturally slowing movement, allowing visitors to absorb the layered sensory experience. The combination of tactile sensation, visual framing, scent, and ambient sound transforms simple ascent into meditation and reflection. In these imagined celestial stairways, the Persian moon garden's careful orchestration becomes evident. Every step, shadow, and reflected beam of moonlight is part of a layered experience designed to engage sight, sound, scent, and movement. The stairways offer elevated perspective and gentle challenge, reinforcing the harmony of human intention, natural rhythms, and the steady, luminous presence of the moon overhead. You approach the imagined garden's pergolas, open frameworks entwined with climbing night-blooming vines that filter moonlight in delicate patterns. One obvious truth is that humans find structures supporting growth both visually satisfying and comforting, offering a sense of enclosure without full confinement. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some pergolas were deliberately oriented to allow moonlight to cascade across latticework, creating moving shadows that danced along paths and benches beneath. Historians still debate whether these effects were meticulously calculated or primarily serendipitous, but the result provides a playful, immersive nocturnal experience. You imagine walking beneath the pergolas, feeling the gentle brush of vine leaves against your arms while inhaling the mingled scents of jasmine, honeysuckle, and damask rose. The filtered moonlight produces shifting geometric patterns on the stone floor, rippling as clouds drift overhead or as a breeze moves the leaves. The combination of scent, sound, and dappled light encourages deliberate attention, mindfulness, and a sense of gentle wonder. Each step reveals new interactions of shadow and reflection, rewarding patience and curiosity. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some pergolas incorporated hidden fountains or water channels that subtly amplified fragrance and created soft echoes, making the space feel alive and interactive. You might picture a visitor pausing mid-walk, noticing a fleeting shimmer of reflected moonlight or a delicate fragrance shift, feeling as if the garden itself is subtly guiding their perception. These subtle design choices blend practicality, sensory delight, and playful engagement. Pergolas also serve as social and contemplative spaces. Visitors might rest on low benches, share quiet conversation, or simply immerse themselves in the nocturnal ambience. The open framework allows connection to the sky and surrounding terraces, while still offering a sense of shelter and intimacy. In these imagined pergolas, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered experience becomes clear. Light, shadow, scent, sound, and movement converge to create dynamic, interactive spaces. The filtered moonlight, rustling leaves, and subtle fragrances encourage observation, contemplation, and gentle delight, reinforcing the garden's harmonious interplay of human intention, natural beauty, and celestial rhythm. You meander toward the imagined garden's crescent-shaped alcoves, intimate niches tucked between terraces and framed by low walls or dense plantings. One obvious truth is that humans are drawn to cozy, secluded spaces that offer privacy while maintaining a sense of connection to the surrounding environment. Fringe accounts suggest that some alcoves were oriented so that moonlight would highlight particular carvings, inscriptions, or floral arrangements during specific lunar phases, creating fleeting, almost secretive displays. Historians still debate whether these alignments were deliberate or happenstance, but the resulting sense of discovery enhances the garden's nocturnal enchantment. You imagine stepping into an alcove, feeling the smooth stone underfoot and inhaling the mingled scents of night-blooming jasmine and tuberose. The narrow space focuses attention, drawing your gaze to subtle carvings, water basins, or reflective surfaces. Moonlight filters gently, creating dappled patterns that shift with clouds, wind, or movement. The interplay of light and shadow encourages mindfulness, quiet contemplation, and slow, deliberate observation of details that might otherwise go unnoticed. A quirky detail appears when considering that some alcoves contained hidden water channels that directed gentle trickles toward polished stones, enhancing reflections and producing faint, soothing sounds. You might picture a visitor pausing to trace a fleeting reflection of moonlight across a basin, feeling a sense of quiet participation in the garden's delicate choreography. These subtle design choices illustrate the playful, interactive spirit inherent in moon garden planning. Paths leading to alcoves are intentionally sinuous, guiding movement and promoting careful attention. Occasional benches or low walls provide pauses for reflection or whispered conversation. The combination of tactile surfaces, subtle sound, filtered light, and scent engages multiple senses simultaneously, creating immersive experiences that are both intimate and serene. In these imagined crescent-shaped alcoves, the Persian moon garden's dedication to sensory layering becomes evident. Light, shadow, sound, scent, and spatial intimacy work together to create moments of quiet discovery and reflection. Each fleeting highlight, gentle ripple, and fragrant breath reinforces the harmony of human intention, natural rhythms, and the patient, luminous presence of the moon above, deepening the nocturnal enchantment of the garden. You wander toward the imagined garden's water terraces, tiered basins that cascade gently from one level to the next, reflecting moonlight in a series of shimmering ribbons. One obvious truth is that moving water naturally attracts attention and induces calm, its rhythm and sound providing both sensory delight and a subtle temporal marker. Fringe accounts suggest that some terraces were precisely graded so that moonlight would shimmer along the cascading water at certain angles, producing fleeting, almost magical visual effects. Historians still debate whether these effects were rigorously planned or emerged intuitively, but the experience of observing flowing water under the moon remains captivating. You imagine stepping along the edge of a terrace, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet, and hearing the gentle, cascading murmur of water as it slips from basin to basin. The moonlight glances off rippling surfaces, scattering glimmers onto surrounding walls, plants, and walkways. Pools below capture reflections of trees, trellises, and distant terraces, creating a layered mosaic of light, movement, and shadow. The interplay between static structures and flowing water engages both sight and sound, drawing you into a contemplative rhythm that feels almost hypnotic. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some terraces contain small hidden spouts or channels designed to produce delicate, musical splashes or to direct water toward reflective stones, enhancing the interplay of light and sound. You might imagine a visitor leaning close to a pool, watching the moonlight fracture across a ripple, and feeling a gentle thrill at this subtle, orchestrated surprise. These playful touches demonstrate the thoughtful artistry and sensory awareness of garden designers. Terraced water features also guide movement and perspective, encouraging visitors to pause, ascend, or descend slowly while observing the interplay of light, water, and plantings. The rhythmic flow of water reinforces a sense of calm and continuity, connecting terraces visually, orally, and spatially. In these imagined water terraces, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of immersive experience and sensory layering is fully apparent. Moonlight, flowing water, reflective surfaces, and fragrant plantings converge, offering layered observation, quiet contemplation, and gentle delight. Each shimmer, ripple, and sound reinforces the garden's careful orchestration, deepening the nocturnal magic and the serene connection between human perception, natural rhythm, and celestial presence. You wander into the imagined garden's lunar observatory terrace, a high vantage point designed for both contemplation and celestial observation. One obvious truth is that humans have always been fascinated by the moon, its phases, and the way it transforms the world around them. Fringe accounts suggest that some terraces were intentionally oriented to frame the moon at particular points along the horizon, creating a visual dialogue between the garden and the night sky. Historians still debate whether these alignments were mathematically precise or guided by poetic intuition, but the experience rewards both careful attention and quiet wonder. You imagine stepping onto the terrace, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet and the gentle night breeze brushing against your skin. The garden spreads below you in terraces, pools, grottos, and alcoves, all subtly illuminated by the soft, silvery glow above. Moonlight falls across reflective surfaces, dappled paths, and sculpted details, while your gaze naturally lifts to the heavens. This terrace serves as a bridge between earth and sky, a place where the human-made and the celestial converge. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some observatory terraces incorporated subtle markers or stones aligned to track the moon's rising and setting positions throughout the year. You might imagine a visitor tracing these markers, noting the changing angles of light, and feeling a connection to generations of garden-goers who also pause to watch the moon's slow journey across the sky. These interactive elements blend education, observation, and gentle amusement, enriching the nocturnal experience. The terrace also provides a space for quiet reflection or shared contemplation. Visitors might linger in silence, share whispered poetry, or simply absorb the layered interplay of light, shadow, water, and fragrance. The combination of elevated perspective, tactile surfaces, and sensory engagement fosters a unique awareness of both the garden and the larger cosmos above. In this imagined lunar observatory terrace, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of immersive, multisensory experience becomes strikingly clear. Light, shadow, sound, scent, and elevation converge to create an environment that rewards attention, encourages reflection, and celebrates the timeless fascination humans have with the moon and the night sky. Here, you feel both grounded in the earthly garden and connected to the celestial rhythms that have inspired wonder for centuries. You wander toward the imagined garden's constellation alcoves, small, intimate spaces where sculpted or planted elements mirror lunar and stellar patterns. One obvious truth is that humans have long sought to connect earthly environments with the cosmos, finding meaning and rhythm in the night sky. Fringe accounts suggest that some alcoves were designed to align with specific star formations or lunar phases, casting shadows and reflections that mimicked constellations on the ground or walls. Historians still debate whether these alignments were precise astronomical tools or largely symbolic gestures, but the resulting effect is quietly mesmerizing. You imagine stepping into an alcove, the cool stone beneath your feet, and the soft fragrance of nearby night-blooming flowers mingling with the crisp night air. The moonlight and starlight fall together, dancing across carved surfaces, reflective pools, and strategically planted flora. Shapes emerge that hint at constellations, blending human artistry with celestial design. The interplay of light, shadow, and form encourages careful observation and gentle curiosity, rewarding those who pause and engage with subtle details. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some alcoves incorporated small mirrors or polished stones to catch and redirect moonlight, creating ephemeral star-like glimmers that shift with movement or the passing clouds. You might picture a visitor leaning in to trace these miniature reflections, marveling at the delicate interplay between garden design and night sky. These fleeting moments highlight the playful, interactive nature of the garden experience, where observation itself becomes a form of engagement. Paths leading to the constellation alcoves are winding and intimate, encouraging slow movement and contemplative exploration. The combination of tactile stone, gentle water sounds, fragrant blooms, and filtered light engages multiple senses, creating an immersive nocturnal journey. Alcoves also offer spaces for quiet conversation or private reflection, balancing intimacy with expansive celestial perspective. In these imagined constellation alcoves, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of blending sensory richness, cosmic awareness, and playful artistry becomes clear. Light, shadow, reflection, and fragrance converge, creating dynamic experiences that reward attention, curiosity, and gentle reflection. Each ephemeral glimmer, shifting shadow, and fragrant breath reinforces the garden's harmonious dialogue between human design, natural cycles, and the patient, luminous presence of the moon above. You drift toward the imagined garden's hidden lantern corridors, narrow pathways lined with intricately designed lanterns that glow softly under the moon. One obvious truth is that subtle light naturally guides movement and draws attention, enhancing both safety and aesthetic experience. Fringe accounts suggest that some lanterns were designed to cast patterned shadows across walls and floors, interacting with moonlight to create shifting visual stories as visitors walked. Historians still debate whether these effects were meticulously planned or arose more intuitively, but the result encourages careful observation and a sense of gentle wonder. You imagine stepping carefully along the corridor, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet, while inhaling the mingled fragrance of night-blooming flowers and damp earth. The lantern's flickering glow complements the moon's soft silver light, casting delicate, moving patterns on surrounding walls, trellises, and small water basins. Each step presents a subtly different tableau, encouraging mindfulness, attention, and playful curiosity as light and shadow interact. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some lanterns contained hidden reflective surfaces or small mirrors, designed to amplify moonlight or create miniature optical illusions. You might picture a visitor pausing mid-step to trace a shimmering shape across the floor, or notice how a shadow suddenly aligns with a carving or water surface. These fleeting surprises reward observation and highlight the garden's playful, immersive design. Lantern corridors also provide rhythm and direction, guiding visitors between terraces, grottos, or pools while slowing movement. The combination of tactile surfaces, soft light, scent, and sound engages multiple senses, creating a layered, meditative experience. Each corridor encourages exploration while offering moments of pause, reflection, and quiet delight. In these imagined hidden lantern corridors, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of immersive, multisensory design becomes evident. Moonlight, lantern glow, scent, sound, and spatial arrangement converge to create dynamic, contemplative experiences. Each shifting shadow, delicate reflection, and fragrant waft reinforces the garden's harmonious balance between human intention, natural beauty, and celestial rhythm, encouraging both curiosity and serenity under the moon's patient gaze. You drift toward the imagined garden's moon-gazing terraces, elevated platforms designed specifically for long, leisurely observation of the night sky. One obvious truth is that humans naturally seek elevated vantage points to expand perspective, feel grounded yet expansive, and contemplate celestial patterns. Fringe accounts suggest that some terraces were carefully positioned so that the moon's path aligned with architectural features, reflecting off pools or illuminating sculptures in sync with lunar cycles. Historians still debate whether these alignments were meticulously calculated or primarily intuitive, but the effect heightens the sense of harmony between human design and cosmic rhythm. You imagine stepping onto a terrace, the cool stone beneath your feet radiating faint warmth from the day, while a gentle night breeze carries soft floral scents from nearby gardens. From this vantage, the garden spreads beneath you in layered terraces, pools, grottos, and pergolas, all subtly illuminated by moonlight. The sky above shimmers with stars, and the moon casts gentle silver light across the landscape. The terrace encourages slow, attentive observation, drawing your gaze both downward to intricate garden details and upward toward the celestial display. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some terraces incorporated polished stones, shallow basins, or reflective tiles strategically positioned to catch and magnify moonlight, creating fleeting glimmers that shift with your movement or passing clouds. You might picture a visitor leaning slightly, tracing the dancing reflections with their eyes, feeling a quiet sense of playfulness and wonder. These subtle surprises enhance engagement, turning observation into a gentle, interactive experience. Moon-gazing terraces also offer spaces for meditation, poetry recitation, or silent conversation. The elevated position and careful alignment of light, scent, sound, and reflection create a serene, contemplative environment that encourages mindfulness and sensory immersion. Each element, the soft scent of blossoms, the subtle murmur of distant water, and the gentle touch of stone underfoot contributes to a multi-layered, nocturnal experience. In these imagined moon-gazing terraces, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of orchestrated sensory engagement and celestial harmony becomes clear. Light, reflection, sound, scent, and elevation converge, creating immersive experiences that reward curiosity, contemplation, and quiet delight. Each shimmer, shadow, and fragrant breath reinforces the delicate balance between human intention, natural beauty, and the timeless, luminous presence of the moon above. You wander toward the imagined garden's reflective channels, long narrow streams designed to mirror the moon and surrounding foliage with perfect clarity. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to reflections, enjoying symmetry, subtle distortions, and the calming effect of mirrored surfaces. Fringe accounts suggest that some channels were engineered so that moonlight would skim across water at specific angles, highlighting plants, carvings, or architectural features in fleeting patterns. Historians still debate whether these alignments were precise calculations or arose from aesthetic intuition, but the interplay of water, light, and movement consistently mesmerizes visitors. You imagine stepping alongside a channel, the soft sound of trickling water mixing with the faint rustle of leaves and night insects. Moonlight schemes the surface, fracturing into tiny glimmers that ripple across the stone edges. Each step shifts your perspective, creating an ever-changing visual experience where reflections layer with real-world features. The subtle oscillation of water and light encourages attentiveness, mindfulness, and gentle amusement, turning ordinary observation into an interactive, immersive journey. A quirky detail arises when considering that some reflective channels incorporated small floating elements, leaves, petals, or polished stones, that cast delicate, moving shadows or shift the path of moonlight. You might picture a visitor nudging a petal with their fingertip, observing how the reflection dances across stone and water, feeling a playful sense of participation in the garden's nocturnal choreography. These small, ephemeral interactions reward curiosity and patience, highlighting the designer's thoughtful attention to sensory delight. The channels also guide movement, drawing visitors toward pools, terraces, or grottos while naturally slowing the pace and encouraging contemplation. The combination of tactile surfaces, sound, scent, and sight creates a multisensory environment, transforming simple walking into a meditative, reflective experience. In these imagined reflective channels, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered sensory orchestration is fully apparent. Water, moonlight, sound, scent, and spatial guidance converge to produce subtle, dynamic experiences that reward close observation and mindful engagement. Each ripple, shimmer, and delicate sound reinforces the garden's harmonious blend of human artistry, natural beauty, and the serene, luminous presence of the moon overhead. You meander toward the imagined garden's moonlit arbors, graceful structures entwined with fragrant vines that filter silver light in delicate patterns. One obvious truth is that humans are naturally drawn to partially enclosed spaces, enjoying a sense of shelter while remaining connected to the larger environment. Fringe anecdotes suggest that some arbors were intentionally oriented to catch the moon's glow at specific angles, illuminating paths, benches, or decorative motifs in fleeting, magical bursts. Historians still debate whether these alignments were carefully calculated or emerged intuitively, but the result is a quietly enchanting, immersive experience. You imagine stepping beneath an arbor, feeling the gentle brush of leaves against your skin, and inhaling the mingled scent of jasmine, honeysuckle, and night-blooming roses. Moonlight filters through latticed vines, casting shifting geometric patterns on stone floors and nearby walls. Each step reveals subtle changes, shadows elongate, reflections ripple, and small details previously unnoticed emerge into view. The interplay of light, shadow, and fragrance encourages slow, attentive observation, turning simple movement into a contemplative, almost meditative journey. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some arbors contained hidden water channels or reflective stones that subtly amplified moonlight and scent. You might picture a visitor pausing to trace a fleeting shimmer on a bench or noticing the gentle ripple of light across a shallow basin, feeling a playful connection to the garden's nocturnal choreography. These subtle design touches reward curiosity and highlight the artistry behind the garden's sensory orchestration. Arbors also serve as gathering or resting points, offering opportunities for quiet conversation, poetry recitation, or reflection. The combination of tactile stone, gentle sound, filtered light, and fragrance creates an environment that engages multiple senses simultaneously, fostering a profound sense of calm and immersion. In these imagined moonlit arbors, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered sensory engagement is fully realized. Moonlight, shadow, scent, sound, and architectural design converge, producing dynamic, interactive experiences that reward attention, curiosity, and reflection. Each shimmering pattern, subtle fragrance, and soft rustle reinforces the garden's careful orchestration, deepening your connection to both the crafted environment and the steady, luminous presence of the moon above. You drift toward the imagined garden's poetic inscriptions, delicate carvings on stone walls, benches, and terrace edges that capture verses celebrating the moon, stars, and nature. One obvious truth is that humans have long sought to intertwine art, language, and environment, using words to deepen sensory and emotional engagement. Fringe accounts suggest that some inscriptions were positioned to catch moonlight at specific angles, making certain words glow faintly in the silver night. Historians still debate whether these placements were meticulously designed or the product of aesthetic intuition, but the effect adds another layer of immersive delight to the nocturnal experience. You imagine running your fingers lightly across engraved characters, feeling the smooth contours of stone, and imagining the hands of artisans from centuries past. Moonlight bathes each letter in a subtle luminescence, emphasizing the flowing curves and poetic elegance. Nearby, night-blooming flowers release soft fragrances that mingle with the quiet rustle of leaves, complementing the reflective act of reading. Each verse invites contemplation, linking human emotion, natural rhythms, and celestial cycles in a layered sensory encounter. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some inscriptions incorporated small reflective inlays or water channels beneath them, amplifying moonlight so that specific words shimmer or appear momentarily doubled in reflection. You might picture a visitor leaning closer, marveling at the fleeting illumination and feeling a quiet thrill at discovering this ephemeral dialogue between text, light, and movement. These subtle surprises reward attentiveness, curiosity, and gentle exploration. Inscriptions were strategically located along pathways, terraces, and alcoves, guiding visitors' attention while offering moments for reflection, conversation, or silent appreciation. The combination of visual beauty, tactile engagement, subtle sound, and fragrant surroundings produces a layered, meditative experience. In these imagined poetic inscriptions, the Persian moon garden's dedication to multisensory layering and thoughtful orchestration is evident. Words, light, shadow, sound, scent, and spatial arrangement converge, producing fleeting, immersive experiences that encourage mindfulness, curiosity, and quiet delight. Each shimmering reflection, gentle rustle, and fragrant waft reinforces the harmonious connection between human design, natural beauty, and the patient, luminous presence of the moon above. You wander toward the imagined garden's hidden alcove fountains, small, secluded water features tucked behind trellises or low walls, whispering their presence rather than announcing it. One obvious truth is that humans are instinctively drawn to the sound of flowing water, which soothes, focuses attention, and invites quiet reflection. Fringe accounts suggest that some fountains were designed so that moonlight would catch the water at precise angles, creating miniature rainbows or glimmers that danced across nearby walls and plantings. Historians still debate whether these effects were carefully engineered or emerged from intuitive design, but the ephemeral magic of light on water remains undeniable. You imagine stepping softly into the alcove, feeling cool stone beneath your feet, while inhaling the mingled scent of night-blooming jasmine, tuberose, and the faint earthy aroma of nearby soil. The gentle trickle of water provides a rhythm, a subtle auditory thread linking observation, movement, and stillness. Moonlight shimmers across rippling surfaces, fracturing into patterns that shift with the slightest breeze, creating a dynamic, ever-changing display. The space encourages stillness, mindful attention, and playful curiosity as you notice the delicate interactions of light, shadow, and water. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some fountains contain small reflective stones or polished basins that subtly amplified moonlight, producing fleeting, delicate sparkles reminiscent of stars. You might picture a visitor leaning in, tracing the reflections with their gaze, or adjusting a floating leaf to observe the shifting glimmers. These small, interactive moments highlight the playful, immersive nature of moon garden design, turning observation into participation and wonder. The hidden alcove fountains also provide quiet resting points along winding paths, encouraging pauses for meditation, whispered conversation, or silent contemplation. The interplay of tactile surfaces, scent, sound, and light creates a multisensory experience that engages mind, body, and imagination. In these imagined hidden alcove fountains, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered, immersive sensory orchestration becomes evident. Light, shadow, reflection, sound, and fragrance converge, producing fleeting, contemplative experiences that reward curiosity, observation, and gentle engagement. Each shimmer, ripple, and soft splash reinforces the harmonious interplay of human intention, natural beauty, and the enduring, luminous presence of the moon overhead. You drift toward the imagined garden's final terrace, a wide, open expanse that brings together pools, pergolas, alcoves, and ornamental plantings under the full glow of the moon. One obvious truth is that humans seek closure, a sense of culmination after wandering and exploration, and this terrace provides that satisfying finale. Fringe accounts suggest that the terrace was intentionally designed to align with the moon's zenith, reflecting silver light across the entire garden, creating an encompassing, luminous panorama. Historians still debate whether this alignment was mathematically precise or largely poetic, but the result feels like a quiet, celestial embrace. You imagine stepping onto the terrace, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet, while inhaling the soft, nocturnal scents of roses, jasmine, and night-blooming lilies. Pools reflect the moon above, rippling faintly with the gentle breeze. Pergolas and alcoves stretch outward, their shadows elongating in silvery patterns, while water terraces cascade softly below. Every element, the scent of flowers, the sound of water, the tactile sensation of stone, the filtered and reflected light, works together to create a layered, immersive experience. The terrace encourages slow, deliberate observation, a final pause to take in the cumulative beauty of the moon garden. A quirky detail emerges when considering that some terrace designs incorporated subtle reflective channels or polished surfaces that amplified moonlight across specific focal points, creating a fleeting, dynamic tableau that shifts with every step and passing cloud. You might picture a visitor leaning slightly to watch the interplay of reflection and shadow, feeling a gentle thrill at the ephemeral choreography of light, water, and architecture. These fleeting visual surprises reward attentiveness and curiosity, leaving a lasting impression of wonder. The final terrace also serves as a contemplative space for reflection, quiet conversation, or simply sitting in silence beneath the luminous sky. The orchestration of tactile, auditory, olfactory, and visual elements throughout the garden culminates here, allowing you to absorb the entire sensory narrative in a single, serene experience. In this imagined final terrace, the Persian moon garden's philosophy of layered, immersive design is fully realized. Every shimmer, shadow, ripple, fragrance, and rustle contributes to a harmonious sensory tableau, reinforcing the delicate balance between human intention, natural beauty, and the patient, luminous presence of the moon above. The garden's nocturnal narrative closes gently, leaving you with a sense of quiet fulfillment and awe. Now, as you rest on the terrace, take a deep breath and let your senses soften. The cool night air brushes against your skin, carrying whispers of jasmine and roses from the terraces below. The gentle sound of water trickling through pools and channels becomes a soft rhythm, guiding your thoughts into a state of calm and reflection. Moonlight washes over the garden in a quiet, silver glow, illuminating details both near and far, as shadows stretch and dissolve with every passing cloud. You feel the textures beneath your hands and feet, the smooth stone, the delicate petals, the gentle rustle of leaves, and let each sensation fade into a serene awareness. Remember the hidden alcoves, the playful reflections in channels, the patterned shadows beneath pergolas. All of them become part of a memory that moves slowly, gently, like the moon across the sky. The garden's scents mingle with the soft night breeze, the harmony of water, stone, and foliage creating a lullaby for your senses. With each exhale, let the layers of light, sound, fragrance, and texture settle, carrying away tension and inviting stillness. Feel the quiet joy of discovery, the subtle thrill of noticing moonlit reflections, and the peace of gentle, deliberate observation. Allow your mind to drift through the terraces, pools, arbors, and alcoves one last time, each element glowing softly in memory. In this lingering calm, the garden becomes a part of you, a nocturnal companion under the luminous gaze of the moon. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and let the serenity of centuries of design, observation, and quiet wonder carry you into rest, carrying the soft, silvery rhythm of moonlight with you.